got a screw loose?
Can't you see I don't give a damn? Shave him dry!
Hold still. You don't want your throat slit, do you?
Once upon a time, there was a trend, and that trend was pretty horrible. Somehow, big companies had this idea to release a big budget movie and a game based on that movie at the same time.
I'm telling you, it's $1 million idea.
Their idea was to milk the product as long as they could. Making money from an IP is their job. But the problem was, most of the time, those games sucked. There are lots of reasons for that. For example, big budget movies have a $150 to $200 million budget and a long time to make. On the other hand, those movie games always get very little budget, a small team, and a very short time. The people who work in these movie games have no passion for the project.
I hate this job.
No game development company with self-respect will work with this type of movie games. So it's a completely money-based product that is also getting done within a very short time span with a very little budget. So I really believe games that get released alongside a big budget movie have almost a 99% chance of sucking. So in this video, we'll talk about such 5 worst movie games. Number 5. Charlie's Angels. This game was released in 2003. This was based on the famous Charlie's Angels film series. It's basically a beat them up type game where these 3 characters beat enemies with blunt weapons. A company called Neko Entertainment made this game. This was the first game they made.
How do we get aboard?
In order to approach it without drawing too much attention, you girls will sign up for the Miss Bikini contest on the beach.
That ought to keep the sailors occupied.
Just for the fun, I searched what other games they made and the results are really funny. They made horrible games like Crazy Frog, Racer, and Marvel Super Heroes 3D Grandmasters Challenge. God knows whatever the hell the second one is. And their company was shut down in 2017. And guess what? The gameplay is horrible. Gamers and critics hated the game and it has been regarded as one of the worst video games ever made in the history of video games. It is that bad.
It's not that bad. No, it is.
Number 4. Fast and Furious Crossroads. This game was released in 2020 and made by slightly made studios who made iconic games like Need for Speed Shift and Project Cars. The game's story moves around between the films The Fate of the Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and F9. I love the Fast and the Furious franchise. That is a pure dumb and pure fun type of franchise. I know those are bad and over-the-top movies, but I enjoy them knowingly. It's like a cheap thrill but pretty fun. This franchise has the option to make iconic over-the-top spectacle-based racing action games, but the Fast and Furious Crossroads is a boring game. It has almost nothing special. The driving is not fun, the missions are very simple, and the main thing is this game does not make you play more because of its lack of originality. This is just sad.
Sad, but true.
Number 3. Transformers. Rise of the Dark Spark. This 2014 game was another movie game that was made by another uninspired game development company called Age of Reality. That company made another super boring movie game called The Incredible Hulk, which was released in 2008. So other than that, they mainly make other movie games on Nintendo Sport. So they were handed to make this game and they did not disappoint at all. They made another horrible game. Every aspect of this game was bad. The game suffered from horrible storytelling. They could not even connect the 2 different Transformers universe properly. This was simply indigestible.
Better get a bucket, I'm gonna throw up.
Number 2. Rambo the video game. This 2014 game was made by a Polish studio, but not the Polish studio you're thinking of. This game was made by a studio called Teon. They're also the master of movie games. They made a first-person Terminator game later, which was also intolerable. So this Rambo game is a first-person video game. Weird choice for a movie game, because if you make a game based on a famous movie character, the gamers might want to see the character while playing. But that's not important at all here. They made a boring, uninspired and unoriginal first-person shooter that absolutely nobody wanted. This game was heavily criticized by professional critics who criticized the poor quality of the graphics, the repetitive nature of the gameplay, and the overall lack of polish. This was simply a nightmare.
Oh, this game sucks!
Number 1. Catwoman. This was released in 2004 and this was based on the movie Catwoman. Most of what happens is the movie turns out fine and the game turns out horrible. But that was different in this case. The movie Catman was one of the worst superhero movies in the history of superhero movies. There are so many videos on YouTube making fun of this movie. This is an unintentionally funny movie. So the game had very low expectations. Still, the game managed to disappoint everyone. The makers of the game Argonaut Games also made some other Harry Potter movie games and finally went out of business. Typical story like every other movie game development company. Catman's mission design, the story, the combat, the world building, everything was laughably bad. That was the list, guys. Good thing is, nowadays hardly any game gets released with a big budget movie. That trend has stopped, which is a ray of hope. We absolutely do not want any movie games anymore.